Welcome back to The Clean Truth by Ruby.
Hey everyone, great to be here again.
So, this is actually our 37th episode, and it's titled Clean for the Season, Building a Low-Effort Summer Routine That Lasts.
Hard to believe we're already at episode 37, honestly.
I know, right? Time flies. But before we get into the main topic today, I really wanted to talk about how the best cleaning routines, they aren't built on perfection. They're totally built on consistency.
Absolutely. Perfection is a myth, anyway.
Exactly. And that ties right into the sustainable living principles we always talk about here. It's all about those small daily habits, rather than like those crazy, occasional intensive cleaning binges that leave you totally exhausted.
Oh yeah, the weekend warrior cleaning spree. It never actually works long term.
Right. Because creating simple, repeatable cleaning routines helps reduce waste, it saves time, and it actually protects your appliances. I mean, it just maintains a way healthier home environment overall.
Yeah, and that appliance protection part is huge. People forget about that.
They really do. Like doing consistent maintenance on your laundry machines or descaling your coffee makers and kitchen appliances, that creates so much better long-term results than just waiting until huge problems appear.
Well, because waiting until it breaks means you're throwing it out, which is terrible for the environment, and buying a new one, which is terrible for your wallet.
Totally. Which connects perfectly to Ruby's whole philosophy, right? Effective cleaning should be simple, it should be sustainable, and easy to maintain every single day.
Just baked into your life.
Exactly. So with that kind of reflective, educational mindset for our closing episode of the month, we're actually going to take a deep dive into something that might sound a little surprising at first.
Oh, I think it's going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah. So if I told you that the United States government's official blueprint for environmental sustainability was ripped straight from the profit-maximizing playbooks of ruthless corporate manufacturers, you'd probably think I was confusing my sources.
I mean, I would. Because we're basically conditioned to view environmental protection and corporate profit as mortal enemies. Like they're locked in this zero-sum game.
Right. We always assume regulation is just this speed bump designed to slow down commerce. Like the whole narrative is that you can either protect the earth or you can make a lot of money. But doing both? That sounds like some kind of public relations trick.
Yeah, totally. It sounds like greenwashing.
Exactly. But today, we are taking the massive buzzword that is sustainability and examining how the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency officially defines it, and more importantly, how they operationalize it.
Which is no small task for a massive government agency.
For sure. So we're pulling straight from the EPA's official sustainability framework, and our mission for this deep dive is to bypass all that corporate greenwashing, ignore the little green leaves on the packaging, and look at the raw mechanical principles the government uses and what that means for you. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We really need to start with the foundational definition here, because before an agency can regulate anything, they have to define its boundaries.
And honestly, formulating that definition is a structural nightmare. I mean, the EPA has to capture this incredibly diverse portfolio, everything from like regulating atmospheric carbon to monitoring your local water table. And they have to put it into a single functional thesis statement.
Right. It can't just be some flowery poem.
Exactly. It can't be overly poetic or it completely loses its regulatory teeth. It has to mean something legally and practically.
Okay, so here's how the EPA defines their foundational principle. Quote, everything that we need for our survival and well-being depends, either directly or indirectly, on our natural environment. Unquote.
It's pretty striking when you read it out loud.
It really is. Like when I read that, it strikes me as a total departure from that traditional, hug-a-tree moral crusade.
Yeah.
It basically frames the natural environment not as a beautiful park we should protect out of the goodness of our hearts, but more like the hardware of a computer system.
Oh, I like that analogy. The hardware.
Yeah, like our economy, our society, our routines at home, that's all just software.
Yeah.
And you just can't run the software if the underlying motherboard is literally melting.
Yeah.
So does this definition intentionally strip away the altruism to focus purely on human self-preservation?
What's fascinating here is the absolute surgical precision of that language.
Yeah.
They're absolutely centering the entire philosophy on human continuity. It's a highly pragmatic, like almost biological stance. Notice the deliberate pairing of the words survival and well-being. Survival represents our baseline biological necessities, right? Clean air to inflate our lungs, drinkable water, agricultural topsoil for food. It's the bare minimum required to keep the human organism alive.
Right, but survival alone doesn't really sustain a civilization. Like, you could survive in a concrete bunker, but you wouldn't call it a high quality of life.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So by attaching well-being to it, the EPA broadens the scope to include economic stability, public health, infrastructure, all of that societal progress. They're acknowledging that a modern functioning society actually requires a stable environmental foundation just to build complex systems upon.
Okay, I want to look at the second half of that definition, though. Specifically the phrase, either directly or indirectly. Because the direct dependencies are super obvious. We need water to drink, duh.
Right, nobody's arguing that.
But indirectly is where the regulatory headache really begins. Like, I know that a smartphone requires rare earth metals, cobalt and lithium, which involves massive extraction operations.
Huge operations, yeah.
But tracing the indirect environmental footprint of a complex product seems nearly impossible. Like, you've got millions of gallons of purified water used to cool microchip plants in Taiwan. You've got cargo ships burning petroleum across the Pacific. Are they suggesting that all of those international supply chain links fall under this umbrella of sustainability?
Well, they're acknowledging that reality, yes. Indirectly is the crucial word there, because it forces an awareness of modern supply chain opacity.
Supply chain opacity, like how we just can't see where our stuff comes from.
Exactly. We tend to treat consumer electronics or, cloud computing as if they exist in this digital vacuum, like they're detached from the physical world. And the EPA's definition just shatters that illusion completely.
It tethers everything back to the earth.
Right. It tethers every single high-tech advancement, every financial transaction back to a finite natural resource. If the water table in a manufacturing hub drops too low, the microchips just don't get fabricated. The supply chain halts.
And then the consumer doesn't get their phone.
Exactly. And the modern standard of well-being takes a measurable hit.
Wow. So when you hear sustainability, it's not just a debate over preserving natural beauty or feeling good about yourself. It's literally about maintaining the continuity of your everyday life.
Yeah, keeping the lights on, basically.
If the hardware fails, the software crashes. But man, that presents a staggering organizational challenge. If sustainability underpins everything from microchips to farming, how does a notoriously slow bureaucracy handle it? The government isn't exactly known for its agility.
No, definitely not. And historically, bureaucracies handle complexity by just compartmentalizing it. They build a specific department, they give it a specific budget, and assign it a specific task.
The classic silo approach.
Exactly.
Which leads to a really ambitious claim in the EPA's operational framework. They actually state, quote, "Sustainability isn't part of our work. It's a guiding influence for all of our work." End quote.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
It is, but I have to play devil's advocate here. In an agency with thousands of employees dealing with just endless information overload, how is it practically possible to make a concept the guiding influence for all work? My immediate suspicion is that this is just a platitude.
A bumper sticker, basically.
It sounds like a corporate mission statement that gets printed on a poster in the break room and everyone just ignores it.
It definitely carries a high risk of becoming an empty platitude, for sure. But in organizational management, there is a fundamental difference between treating a mandate as a silo versus treating it as a lens.
Okay, I understand the silo problem. Like, if you build a department of sustainability, you're essentially telling every other department that the environment is no longer their problem.
Somebody else is handling it.
Yeah, the budgeting team, the emergency response team, they all assume the sustainability team down in the basement is taking care of it. And then they inevitably go to war over budget allocation anyway.
That is the exact trap of the silo model. It isolates the problem. But a lens philosophy attempts to dismantle those borders entirely. By declaring sustainability a guiding influence for all work, the EPA is mandating that sustainability is the lens through which every single employee must view their specific job function.
So how does that actually play out mechanically? Let's take an emergency response team dealing with, like, a natural disaster. Their immediate goal is to save lives and clear debris, right? How do they apply a sustainability lens in the middle of a crisis?
Well, mechanically, it changes their procurement and logistical planning before the disaster ever even strikes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Through a siloed approach, an emergency response team might just purchase the cheapest, most available chemical dispersants or single-use plastics to handle a flood, and they inadvertently contaminate the local water supply while trying to fix the immediate problem.
Right. creating a new disaster.
Exactly. But through a sustainability lens, that same team evaluates the life cycle of their relief materials in advance. They plan supply routes that minimize secondary ecological damage. They make sure the recovery effort doesn't create a secondary crisis that the local town has to deal with 10 years later.
So it forces every department to look at the second and third order consequences of their actions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this philosophy is actually a highly effective template for managing any complex systemic issue, whether you're running a multinational organization or just managing your own household.
Like we were saying earlier with the cleaning routines.
Exactly. You cannot quarantine a massive interconnected problem into a single category and expect to solve it. It has to become the operating system running in the background of every decision.
Okay, so applying a theoretical lens to internal government processes is one thing. But the EPA doesn't build the smartphones. They don't run the cargo ships or operate the massive factory floors. Private for-profit corporations do.
Right, the private sector.
So how do you force a privately owned corporation to adopt this lens without them fighting you every step of the way over, regulatory overreach and lost profits?
It's the million-dollar question.
Truly. Which brings us to a fascinating concept in the framework regarding the business sector. The EPA repeatedly pushes something they call sustainable manufacturing, and they heavily rely on concepts like lean manufacturing, lean thinking, and lean toolkits.
Yes, the lean principles.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because lean manufacturing is a notoriously ruthless corporate philosophy.
It is. It has its origins in the Toyota production system, and yeah, it is famous for its relentless pursuit of operational efficiency.
I mean, its entire goal is to slash overhead, cut excess inventory, and squeeze every possible drop of productivity out of an assembly line, right? To maximize shareholder value. So I have a hard time believing the EPA is promoting this out of the goodness of their hearts.
It does seem counterintuitive.
Doesn't giving corporations lean toolkits just provide them government cover to cut costs? It feels like an open door for greenwashing. Like a company saves a few bucks on electricity, slaps an EPA-approved sustainable badge on their website, and actually changes nothing about their real ecological impact.
I mean, that is the natural suspicion, absolutely. But it misunderstands the shared mechanics of both lean production and environmental conservation.
How so?
Well, to see why the EPA co-opted this corporate strategy, you really have to look at how both an executive board and an environmental scientist define the concept of waste. They are actually looking at the exact same physical inefficiency, they're just measuring it with different metrics.
Okay, let's trace that out. So on a factory floor, if a manager identifies waste, they're looking at a capital drain. They see raw materials that were purchased but damaged on the line. They see the electricity bill for machines left idling between shifts, or the fuel costs for trucks transporting half-empty pallets. To a corporate executive, that physical waste is simply lost profit.
Exactly. And if an EPA scientist walks onto that exact same factory floor, they see the exact same waste, but they measure it in ecological degradation.
Ah, I see.
Those damaged raw materials. That represents unnecessary extraction from the earth. The idling machines represent excess kilowatts drawn from a power plant, which is likely burning fossil fuels. The half-empty trucks represent unnecessary diesel emissions pumped right into the atmosphere.
Wow. So they're fighting the exact same enemy. The EPA realized that if you give a corporation the tools to aggressively hunt down operational waste to save money, they will inadvertently reduce their environmental footprint in the process.
It is a masterful alignment of incentives, honestly, because regulation often fails when it relies entirely on punitive measures, fines, taxes, sanctions.
Right, companies just lawyer up.
Exactly. It creates an adversarial relationship where companies spend millions finding loopholes. But by utilizing lean thinking, the EPA bypasses the moral argument entirely. They don't have to convince a CEO to care about the polar bears.
They just show them the money.
Right. They hand the CEO a toolkit that proves reducing their energy consumption and material waste is going to significantly improve their quarterly profit margins.
I want to look at how a lean tool actually achieves that in reality. Like, let's take something like value stream mapping, which is a classic lean technique, right?
Yeah.
Where a company maps out every single step a product takes from raw material to the customer's hands just to find bottlenecks.
Yeah, a very common practice.
If a company realizes a component is being shipped back and forth between two facilities totally unnecessarily, they change the route to save transportation costs. The byproduct of that profit-driven decision is a massive reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from their logistics fleet.
And that completely reframes the narrative around sustainable business practices. Being green is no longer this burdensome, expensive, charitable act. It's a core competitive advantage now.
That's a huge mindset shift.
The companies that adopt these lean toolkits operate more efficiently, they boast higher margins, and they simultaneously protect the environmental hardware that their entire business model relies upon.
Okay, that strategy makes total sense for a massive vertically integrated corporation. Like if you run a billion-dollar manufacturing plant, you have the capital to map your value streams and audit your energy usage and do all these sweeping lean
You
overhauls.
can hire entire teams for it, yeah.
Right. You can absorb the upfront costs of new machinery, but
Mhm.
you'll make it back in savings over the next 10 years. But this creates a massive blind spot regarding scale. What about the small businesses?
The mom and pop shops.
Yeah. If the local community farm or the neighborhood dry cleaner or small auto body shop wants to adopt sustainable practices, they don't have the deep pockets or dedicated R&D teams to figure out how to do it.
They really don't. A small business operating on razor-thin margins just cannot risk a massive capital expenditure on unproven green technology. I mean, if a family-owned dry cleaner wants to switch from using highly toxic solvents to an environmentally safe wet cleaning system, the upfront cost of those new machines could literally bankrupt them if the transition isn't flawless.
Which means the default behavior for small entities is to just stick to the older, dirtier, but cheaper methods just to survive.
Because they have no other choice.
So how does the EPA bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Because you can't really have a sustainable economy if only the top 1% of multinational conglomerates can afford to participate in it.
You absolutely cannot, which is why the EPA framework heavily emphasizes the democratization of these tools. They recognize that the barrier to entry for sustainable innovation is almost entirely financial.
So what do they do?
This is where initiatives like their sustainability research grants come into play, as well as programs specifically managed by the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization.
Oh, I saw the Smart Steps to Sustainability program aimed at small and disadvantaged businesses in the source material. How does that practically function? Are they basically acting as, like, free government-funded consultants?
Essentially, yes. They're absorbing the risk that the small business cannot afford to take. Think about it. A multinational corporation can hire a top-tier consulting firm to build a bespoke, lean manufacturing plan. The EPA takes the high-level data generated by those massive overhauls, distills it down into actionable, scale-appropriate steps, and provides it directly to small businesses.
That's actually really smart.
Yeah, they create toolkits that allow a 15-person manufacturing outfit to audit their energy usage without having to hire an expensive outside firm.
And the research grants provide the actual capital to make the physical changes, like a targeted financial injection to overcome that initial hurdle.
This raises an important question, though. How much intellectual capital and local innovation is lost when environmental compliance is gatekept by extreme costs?
Probably a lot.
Right. Small businesses are inherently more agile than massive corporations. They're deeply embedded in their local ecosystems and communities. So by providing funding and accessible educational frameworks, the government is not just enforcing top-down compliance, they are actively fertilizing grassroots innovation.
They're ensuring the local auto shop has the same access to survival tools as the global automaker.
Exactly. It levels the playing field.
It creates a fascinating closed-loop system when you look at the entire framework from top to bottom. I mean, we started our deep dive with a remarkably pragmatic, uncompromising definition. The EPA views the environment as the non-negotiable hardware required for human survival and economic well-being. Then we explored how they attempt to force that perspective into the DNA of their own massive bureaucracy, right? By treating sustainability as a universal lens rather than an isolated silo.
Breaking down those walls.
Exactly. And then we saw how they cleverly manipulate the profit motive of corporate giants, using lean manufacturing to turn cost-cutting measures into ecological victories. And finally, we looked at the mechanisms used to subsidize the risk for small businesses, ensuring the transition doesn't just crush the little guy.
It really moves the concept of sustainability away from abstract idealism and anchors it in operational logistics. It is a comprehensive blueprint for maintaining the very systems that keep us alive.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think the most vital takeaway is the application of this lens philosophy to your own decision-making, especially regarding what we talked about at the start of the show. We often treat sustainability or even just our home routines as a silo in our personal lives.
Oh, absolutely.
It becomes this chore we do when we sort the recycling on a Sunday evening, or this momentary guilt we feel when we throw away a plastic container or do a massive panic clean before guests arrive.
Right. It remains an isolated behavior rather than a core operating principle.
Instead, you can adopt the EPA's operational framework, apply the lens. When you're budgeting your household expenses or maintaining your coffee machine or auditing the energy you consume, you can utilize your own version of lean thinking.
Your own personal toolkit.
Yes. Remember that physical waste in your home, whether it's an appliance breaking down from neglect or excess packaging or inefficient heating, is directly tied to a loss of your own personal capital. Reducing your footprint isn't a sacrificial act. It's an improvement to your own bottom line and a contribution to the long-term stability of the systems you rely upon.
And regarding those systems we rely upon, the EPA framework offers one final, really crucial detail about our role within this structure. The government provides these definitions, the grants, and the lean toolkits, but the framework is not designed to be a one-way street.
You're talking about the feedback loop.
Yes. The official site specifically requests citizen input. They categorize users by their roles: scientists, students, government employees, and business owners, and they actively ask for data on how these tools are functioning in the real world.
Right, because we tend to view environmental policy as this dictatorial force. Like, the government sits in Washington, writes the rules, and punishes us if we fail to comply.
But a functional operating system requires constant diagnostic data from its users to patch bugs and improve efficiency. I mean, the EPA cannot refine a local small business grant without data from the local small business owner who actually attempted to use it.
That shifts the responsibility right back onto the public. We aren't just passive consumers of environmental regulation. We are required data points in the system.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to consider today. If sustainability is not an abstract corporate buzzword, but the actual mechanical framework required for human survival and economic continuity, when was the last time you actively engaged with the systems governing your environment?
Oh, that's a great question.
When did you last provide feedback, challenge a local zoning law, or even look into a municipal grant?
The hardware keeping our society running requires constant maintenance. You don't have to wait for an agency to dictate the terms. You can step up and actively participate in the coding of the software. It's a perspective shift that completely redefines what it means to live sustainably inside your home and out.
Absolutely.
Let's explore why the cleanest homes aren't built through harder work, but through smarter habits.